Me complace invitar al presidente de este dinner, a uno de los donadores más grandes de esta generación. Cientos de millones al año. ¿Cuánta Torah? ¿Cuántos abrejim? ¿Cuántas yeshivot mosdot sobre los hombros de este gran señor? ¿Cuánto debe toda la Torah de esta generación a él y a gente como él? Porque sin las donaciones, sin el apoyo económico, ningún proyecto puede volar. Les presento a Rav Shlomo Yehuda Rechnitz, por favor.
You know, they really scared me by telling me that in Mexico, you need to have security guards. I said, why would I need a security guard? Well, they said, because there's a big problem with kidnapping. They'll just pull up their car, pick you up, throw you into the back seat, and then they demand $1 million. I thought for a second, and then I said, anyone who can literally pick me up and throw me into a car deserves the $1 million. That's not really true, because I lost a lot of weight today. You see, last night in Los Angeles, I weighed myself and I was close to 400 pounds. That's very big. But today in my hotel in Mexico, I only weighed 250 kilo. Firstly, I'd like to apologize on behalf of all the citizens of the United States of America for Donald Trump. But you should know, it turns out that he's not that bad for the Eden. First, he moved the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim. Then he was able to get Sholem Rubashkin out of jail. And now he's promising to build the biggest, widest, tallest kotel in the whole wide world. Coming to Mexico is a big sacrifice for me. The trip threw off my whole schedule. As a matter of fact, I wasn't able to do my exercise this morning. That's 10 years in a row now. Bereshus Rabbanim Rosh Yeshiva Nasi Shel HaMosid Harav Shmuel Kamenetsky Moiri Rebbe Rosh HaYeshiva the Yeshiva Smir Harav Lezi Yudel Finkel Loimdei Torah Ubadei Ha'aron HaToimchi Torah. Firstly, I have to say that I didn't imagine in my wildest dreams that I'd see what I saw today and what I see here tonight. The amount of learning, the amount of chesed, even the amount of people is so shocking to me. And to be honest with you, I don't know how many Americans would have never visited Mexico could even imagine what's going on here. But now it's easier for me. But now it's easier for me to understand the tefillah that we daven in Shemoneh Esrei 3 times a day when we say V'kapseinu yachad me'arba kanfos haaretz. The Gemara in Baba Basra says, Baram zocher oiso yish latoiv. This person will always be remembered for good. The Yeshua ben Gamel Shemai, and Yeshua ben Gamel is his name. She'il molehu, because if not for him, nishtachech Torah miYisrael. The world would have totally forgotten the Torah. Torah would be forgotten from Klal Yisrael. And the Gemara goes on to explain that until Ben Gamliel came along, a person's father would teach him Torah. But unfortunately, there was nothing in place for the children who didn't have fathers, the Yisayimim. So Yeshua ben Gamliel made a takana that every city and every village must open up a cheder. And the question arises, what Yeshua ben Gamliel did was indeed very admirable, but realistically, most people had fathers. So how can the Gemara go so far and possibly say that without him, Nishtachach Torah Yisrael, the majority of the children were learning? And upon pondering the Gemara, the threat of Nishtachach Torah Yisrael is a pretty serious threat. The world is built on Torah. Is there another Gemara in Shas that even considers this as a possibility? I'm sure there are many terutzim to this kasha. There are Chassidish terutzim, Litvish terutzim, Brisker terutzim, Svardish terutzim, and while I can't tell you which teretz is accurate, one thing the Gemara makes very clear is that even if one child doesn't have a school, the end result will be Nishtachach Torah MiYisrael. Because we can never know, especially with our tumultuous history, a history that since the second Beis HaMikdash has never survived even just 10 years straight, when we weren't subject to ghettos, pogroms, inquisitions, a Holocaust, and persecution, where Yidden had to risk their lives to learn Torah, hiding in basements and attics, because being found meant instant death. But we Yidden don't just go away. We don't just disappear like all the other powerful nations in history. No, we come back, and we come back stronger than before. So what koyach does Klal Yisrael have that makes it so unique? The Torah describes how Esav came to his father Yitzchak when he discovered that Yaakov had received or had stolen the brachas. And he pleaded, Barcheni gam avi, and Barcheni gam ani avi, Abba, Father, bench me as well. Yitzchak answered, I already gave the brachas to Yaakov. So Esav cried, Habrocha achas hilecha? Do you only have one bracha? But it was too late. Yaakov had already received the brachas. To which every boy in Cheder asks, Rebbe, why couldn't Yitzchak just give Esav a different bracha? Why couldn't he give him a bracha for parnasa, for healthy children? Are there a shortage of brachas? I believe the answer, al pidrush, is that Esav didn't want just any bracha. Vayomer Esav el Avid, and Esav said to his father, Habrocha achas hilecha. Esav wanted the bracha of achas, the bracha of one, the bracha of unity, the brother of Achdus. Esav knew very well that if Yaakov Avinu and the Bnei Yisrael have Achdus, there was no way he could ever defeat them. When we have Achdus, there's no way we can ever be defeated, not physically by our enemies, and not spiritually by our Yetzer Hara. We must never forget that we are one people. I find it interesting that we and Hitler, Yamach Shemoy v'Zichroi, didn't see eye to eye on most matters. But there's one thing we all agreed on. Whether Sephardi, Ashkenazi, religious, not religious, Chassidish or Litvish, A Jew is a Jew is a Jew. We're all one, we're all achas. Did you ever take notice of the fact that since the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, there were never 70 consecutive years where there was no mass persecution of the Eden until now? Yes, there could have been a swastika graffitied on a building or a lone shooter entering a temple, but no country in the world, even the Arab countries, has specific rules and regulations treating Jews with their own exclusive privileges. The Holocaust, Rabbi Yisai, ended 70 years ago. Every single day, all of us together are making history. Never did this happen in our entire history. Are we holier than all the previous generations? I doubt that very highly. We can't possibly compare ourselves to the Kedusha of our forefathers, the Tanoim, the Amoraim, the Rishonim, the Achroinim, and they couldn't even get 10 years free from persecution. So what's so special about us? Why are we the ones who get to live with menucha? M'yertz Hashem shetamshich hala. There's only one way to explain this. You don't have to be a scientist to realize the one other big change that occurred, to realize what's different today. In the history of Klal Yisrael, there was never anything near the amount of Torah in both Kamos and Eichus that exists today. We read about pre-war Europe. It's estimated that there was a maximum of 2,000 people who were learning Torah U'Mnasai, and that included both Bochurim and Avreichim. The number of yeshivas, koilim, Bali Tshuva, and Chadorim in every city, in every country is astounding. There's been no time in history when chesed overflowed like it does today, when there are organizations for every conceivable tzara or need that a fellow Yid may have. For some reason, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the schus to spread and build Torah. Do we chas v'shalom ever give up this tremendous schus, this amazing bracha? And about the same time that the Holocaust ended 70 years ago, Mexico, which had a large Ashkenazi kehillah, started melting away. It slowly fizzled. It went away. It wasn't an Inquisition or a pogrom that drove the Ashkenazi Jews out of Mexico. It wasn't government persecution that forced the Ashkenazim to leave. It was because they had nowhere to go, nowhere to return. Life then in Mexico for an Ashkenazi was a dead end. No future, no plans, no Torah, and no Yiddish chinuch. The Gemara in Sanhedrin asked, Hanani Mishol v'Azarya leheichon azvu. Whatever happened to them? Where did they go? Rabbi Yochanan Omar, Rabbi Yochanan says, Alu le'eretz Yisrael, v'nosu noshim v'yilidu banim u'banis. They went to Eretz Yisrael, they got married, and they had sons and daughters. That's a groise chiddush? That's what became of them? They went to Eretz Yisrael and had children, that's their legacy? The truth is that even though they went through the Kishon Ha'esh, and they could have been down and depressed, after all, nobody jumped in to save them nevertheless. They realized that they have to continue on with the Messiah. So they went up to Eretz Yisrael and continued making dairos of Torah. How much more so can we learn from the previous dar of the Holocaust, who had parents, siblings, and children that never escaped from the Kishon Ha'esh. They left concentration camps through chimneys. But what did they do when they were liberated? They didn't hesitate. They went to America, v'nasu noshim, v'yilidu banu ubanis. They came back and built Chador. They revived the neshama of Tinoiki Shel Beis Ragam. But to Mexico, they didn't return. And now, we face our last and final chance to revive what was once a beautiful, thriving community. We, all of us, have a duty, an obligation to once again hold hands together and rebuild and develop and reconstruct what we lost, what we gave away. Lahachzir atar liyoshna. Are we going to continue to build the Torah that gave us extra protection for the last 70 years? Or are we just going to let it crumble and disappear? The Gemara in Tainus relates an interesting story. Ashkechei Rabbi Yochanan liyanuka de Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan happened to meet the son of Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan says to him, Eima li psukech. Tell me what pasuk you learned in Cheder today. The child replied by quoting the pasuk with a double lashon of Aser to Aser. Rabbi Yochanan explained to him his chiddush of why the word Aser is repeated and how he learned from there Aser b'shvil shetis Asher. Give meiser, give tzedakah so that you'll become rich, you'll become wealthy. The boy then asked Rav Yochanan, how did you come to this conclusion? Rabbi Yochanan replied, go test it out for yourself. Reish Lakish's child then asked a very logical question. Is it permissible to test Hashem? Isn't there another pasuk which clearly says, Le'sanasu es Hashem? You can't test Hashem? Rav Yochanan explained to him that the exception, the only exception in the Torah where we are allowed to test Hashem is in regards to Meiser Tzedakah. As Hashem said to the Navi Malachi, U'lechanuni na b'zayis. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to his beloved nation, please test me on this. Im lo yeftach es harubos hashamayim, if I don't open the windows of heaven, v'arikoisi lochem brocha ad b'lidai, I will shower on you brocha and shefa until you can take no more. As the Gemara in the Yerushalmi quotes it, dayenu brocha, dayenu brocha. With no disrespect intended, as I stand here practically alone with my 1,000 closest friends, let's be real. We've all seen this pasuk. We've all heard it in speeches, and most of us have even tried it. Yet while maybe some people fare a little better in business than others, how many of us can really say that they were zoiche to v'harikoisi lochem brocha ad b'lidai? So most times, when the Torah mentions schar, a reward for a particular mitzvah, it can be defined as a reward that he will eventually experience in Olam Haba, the more important of the two worlds. But that's clearly not the case here, because neither I nor anyone else will have a need for money in Olam Haba. You can't probably pay someone to get into Gan Eden. I heard they don't take dollars, which means they definitely don't take pesos. I need the money here and now where it has value. So what's really going on? Why are we putting Hashem in a position of a person, Keviyachol, who doesn't keep his word? I'm positive I have the answer. And as the Beis Yosef and the Torah say, it's Badik Umenusa. Allow me to share a mashal of a Gabbai Tzedakah The usher gives specific instructions as to how the gabbai is to distribute his money. הוא אומר שאני רוצה שאתה תיתן $1,000 לכל ישיבה. כל כולל צריך לקבל $2,000. אלמון יסיסוימים אולי 1,800 וכהנה. The first person walks into the gabbai, and the gabbai asks his name, and then says, "You're the yeshiva that didn't take my son in. אתה לא קיבלת את הבן שלי, נכון?" The fundraiser doesn't know what to say, and he leaves empty-handed. Another person comes in. He's dressed as a Chassidish Yid. "Oh, your Rebbe and my Rebbe don't get along because your Rebbe insulted my Rebbe." He too turns around and leaves empty-handed. A third person comes in and is criticized for not giving the gabbai's father shlishi on a Shabbos over 3 years ago. I guess the usher should be pretty happy as he saved money that he ordinarily would have given. But it doesn't work that way. Once the usher does find out, he'll drop everything he's doing and he'll run to the gabbai's house and say, "Who do you think you are? Are you crazy? You're going to give or not give my money based on your personal agenda, your personal motives?" The first thing that any usher would do, the first thing that anyone in this room would do, is take back the checkbook. The nimshul is obvious. We have to realize that we all are mir gizboyer. We are all gabeit stuck with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's money. Yet unfortunately, most or all people have at least one maisid or one cause that we will absolutely not support. And because you don't like a certain Rosh Koil, a certain Chacham, or maybe your minhagim differently entirely from his minhagim, or you don't realize that while someone else may have a different Messiah to which we're supposed to say, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim, your opinion doesn't mean that all the Bachrim and Avreichim, or other any needs of Hashem's children, should be on the other end of your shita or punishment. It's not our job to show people or rebuke them. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's job, and let me assure you that he has a lot more resources than we do. We just have to do our job and let HaKadosh Baruch Hu do the rest. And to these people I warn, beware of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He will no doubt demand that you return his checkbook. I'd like to correct a big misconception about me. יש משהו שאנשים חושבים עליי שזה פשוט לא נכון. Some of you think that I give some tzedakah here and there, and I have some money because I have a lot of mazel. Well, you're wrong. I'm extremely astute and have good business acumen, and I'm extremely creative, and I figured out the way to constantly make money. I don't have a problem sharing the economics and the finances with you, on the condition that when you make all that extra money, you'll make big contributions to Torah institutions in Mexico. So who wants to learn how to make money? I just want to make a disclaimer. As most speakers, I will never boast about my own attributes when speaking publicly, especially since there aren't many of them to boast about. But this is strictly l'toivas hatzibur and l'toivas the Jewish Kehillah of Mexico. I can say that I have many, many faults. You can ask around. There's absolutely no shortage there. But what I like to call selected giving, שאתה נותן צדקה לאנשים, למוסדות, רק שאתה אוהב, what I like to call selective giving is not one of them. That's not one of my faults. I don't pick and choose. I always give and have always given. For as far back as I can remember, I never, ever said no to someone. I might not have given them what they wanted or what they expected or according to their desired time frame, but I never said no. And believe me, there are people who have hurled insults at me or at people who are close to me. Yes, sometimes I had to hold my nose and force myself to smile, let alone write a check. But I never forgot that I wasn't giving out my own money. I'm just a gabbai. Perhaps you might think to yourself, לעצמכם, שיש איזו עבירה אחרת שאני עשיתי, ובגלל זה הברכה של והריקויסי לכם ברוכה עד בלי די לא תתקיים. You're going to think, I did it a different way, or yeah, I gave tzedakah, the Eibishter made me a promise. But none of us are perfect, we're all human. As we say, Einonu azei ponim ukshei oref, lo yimar lefonecha, tzadikim anachnu v'lo chotonu, aval anachnu v'avoseinu chotonu. Well, that's not the way it works. As it says in the Sefer Hasidim, one of the later Rishonim, זה כתוב בפירוש בספר החסידים, שהוא היה אחד מהראשונים, שאין שום עבירה שאפשר לעבור, שיש את הכוח לבטל את הברכה של והריקויסי לכם ברוכה עד בלי די. What's so interesting is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't only allow us to test him, he pleads with us to test him. Uv'chanuni na, please test me. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu always looks for an opportunity to give shefa and bracha to his Am HaNivchar. If you still speak, don't blame me tomorrow when you're still broke. If you look in the Piskei Tshuva, in Shulchan Aruch, he says two startling chidushim. Firstly, he says that when giving money for the sake of aser to aser, or uv'chanuni na b'zois, you have to have in mind the pasuk of uv'chanuni na b'zois. And the second chiddush is that when you give the money, you can't give it for the mitzvah of tzedakah. You can't give it for any other reason. You have to give it just al t'nai that you become wealthy. This is a Piskei Tshuva. And not only that, but he says that if you give the money to merit any other bracha other than Ashirus, Hashem's havtacha of Chununina B'Zois will not be Mekuyim. So if you do as Hashem asks and test him, and you don't see bracha ad b'lidai, it's not because of some aveir you did. It's because you didn't know whose money you were really giving. And let me add, we say v'hoser sutn u'faneinu ma'achareinu in Ma'ariv. We ask Hashem to remove the sutn from in front of us and from in back of us. And I always wondered, I understand asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu to remove the sutn in front of us. He's attempting to hold us back from doing a mitzvah. But what does it mean, v'hoser sutn me'achareinu? What does it mean holding the sutn back? I'm convinced that the pshat is that when a person does a mitzvah, such as if a person writes a check for tzedakah, but later regrets it, I shouldn't have given them that much. I have better things to spend my money on. They didn't really need the money that bad. That, Rabbi Isai, is not doing a mitzvah b'shleimusa. The hoser sutn u'faneinu, take away the sutn who stands before us, telling us not to write the check. U'me'achareinu, and the sutn who lingers behind and convinces you to regret the mitzvah that you are already mekayim. I'd like to tell you something I'm noticing. In the last few years in the United States, people, and especially from the younger generation, are giving unprecedented amounts of tzedakah to Torah establishments, and there's no question that we're constantly seeing these younger people, these former Avrechim, we all have to admit are not the most highly educated in Limudei Chayil, experiencing remarkable and unusual shefa and bracha as their contribution to the yeshiva increase every year. Rabbi Yochanan was Reish Lakish's Rebbe. Then they became chavrusas. It's obvious how much they learned together by observing all the machloiksim in Shas between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. But on one thing in Shas, and one thing only, they agreed. In Masechtas Tamur Daf Yudalid Amid Beis, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish agreed, mutav tiaker Torah, better to not do a mitzvah, better to be over an aveira, val tishkachech Torah Yisrael, and be sure that Torah is never forgotten from the Yidden. Zocher Oiseish Latayv, like we said, remember Yeshua ben Gamla for the good, for without him assuring that every child in the Kehillah had a school, we could have all chas v'shalom forgotten the Torah. Comes Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish to tell us that it's better to uproot and to disrupt an entire city while being over on mitzvahs and aveiros to assure shelo nishtachach Torah Yisrael. It's all about achrayus. It's all about responsibilities. I'd like to add in something. רציתי להוסיף משהו שלא הכנתי לדבר על זה הלילה, בגלל שלא ראיתי את הישיבה קודם לכן. I can't describe how moved and inspired I was. I'm not the really emotional type, but my eyes started tearing up. The young boys and girls, so innocent, you can feel that they have pure neshamas. The yeshiva ketana, every boy a gem, everyone a masterpiece. And I thought that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't forget any neshama, any yid. I had thought that there's Torah in Eretz Yisrael, Torah in America. Those places evoke some kedusha. But what I saw today, Tinoikli shel beis Rabbim, shelo yitoamu tam chet, children that HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepted as our Ravim on his Torah. Children who, when they learned Torah, you could delay building the Beis HaMikdash. These children, these Heilig Neshamas, we put them in a building that is so decrepit, so depressing. Before even looking at their ruchnius, I have to give them covet for just showing up. I can easily imagine and would believe if a child left yeshiva just because of how the building looks. So you can do two things tonight. You can just leave, go home. On behalf of the Meister and myself, we thank you for coming. Or you can take out a check and write a number on the check. And on the memo line, write the words, U'lechanuni na b'zayis. And in your mind, you should have the kavanah that I'm writing this check to become an usher. Al tzedechanuni na b'zayis. And give that to any one of the representatives of the Mossad. If you need to know how much you want to write on the check, take whatever number of money you want to make and divide it by 10. That's your number. Thank you for listening.